Truth Espresso, episode 137.
Face it, we all would rather sleep in this morning. That's why God gave us espresso, to kickstart our zombified corpses into hyperdrive. And now, giving your mind and soul the morning shot of truth it craves. This is Truth Espresso with Daniel Minnick.
Well, hello, this is Daniel Minnick, your host for Truth Espresso Express, coming at you with another episode. And this one is going to be interesting, as they are all interesting, but I am on my commute to work in the morning, and it was a little cold last night, and there's actually a little bit of frost on the grass this morning. You know, it's like winter is starting to peek up from the horizon or something like that, you know. Whatever kind of metaphor or figure of speech I could use to show that winter is starting to show itself. So this episode of Truth Espresso Express, I'd like to talk about, the evolving story about the abortion law in Texas and all the stuff that's going on with that. So if you haven't been keeping up to date with what's going on there, as you know, as you should know, Governor Greg Abbott had signed the heartbeat law, the heartbeat bill, Senate Bill 8, into law on May 15th, and then it was set to become law, be activated September 1st. And yeah, as we know, September 1st, when it did go into law, my wife Chelsea and I did an episode that talked about what was going on with that and mentioned the abortion frenzy to get them done before midnight morning September 1st. So that was disheartening there. But so according to pro-life groups like Texas Right to Life, they say about 3,000 or more babies have been saved as a result, and accordingly the abortion providers, at least they claim, they've all been in compliance with the 6-week cutoff time and haven't performed abortions. They've been in compliance with the law. So yeah, as we have mentioned on earlier episodes, yeah, the law isn't perfect, because anything that doesn't recognize that life begins at conception and demands protection from conception, that no one has the right intentionally to kill any human. It's not perfect, but I mean, we do believe that abortion needs to be abolished, but it's something. And seeing how the leftists are scrambling, fighting against it's entertaining to see. So, on October 6th, let me talk about what's unique about this bill that tries to get around the way it would be enforced. Like, say, if it were enforced by executive functions or police expecting people or punishing people for a crime. That's not how this bill is enforced, so you could form your own opinion about whether this is a good idea or bad. But the Texas heartbeat law is enforced by private citizens bringing lawsuits, and the law says that a minimum of $10,000, I believe, is the reward if someone brings suit against an abortion provider in accordance with the language of the bill and succeeds in court. They can be awarded $10,000. and of course the media will call it like a system of bounties, and making Texans seek bounties, and so the effectiveness of that remains to be seen. But it's the reason for this was designed to shield the bill from the legal challenges. Of course, I guess, given the way things are, you can't perfectly shield it, because pro-abortion advocates and those in government, activist justices, are going to challenge it anyway, which is what happened. So yes, President Joe Biden said that he was committed to overturning it, and the administration sued, claiming the law was unconstitutional, even though the law for enforcement tries to get around the legal challenges so that it would be constitutional. But of course, the grounds for it being unconstitutional is that it violates, or it gets around, Roe versus Wade, which the media will often claim is the law of the land. Well, since when, has a court opinion ever been law? Like, so a judge rules in a particular case with a plaintiff and a defendant that, here's how the plaintiff or the defendant has been wronged, and now here is the restitution that the other side needs to give. So, it's supposed to apply in that particular case, and then the case is precedent, so that if someone were to be in a similar situation, then with court precedents, if it was brought to a court, based on precedents, they would likely end up with a similar result. That's supposed to be what a court ruling is. It's not, the judges are not supposed to be making law from the bench. But it seems like a lot of people just assume that is the case, that if a judge rules a certain way on a Supreme Court case, that it's the law of the land, and now police can forbid people from doing something if it goes against the opinion of the ruling of the majority of the judge panel in a particular case involving particular people. That's not law. That's opinion. You might say, well, I might not, I might try to avoid that particular situation because I don't want to end up in court and with that situation, but it's not law, okay? So stop saying that Roe versus Wade is the law of the land, and then the whole idea of it being of abortion being a constitutional right is because Roe versus Wade, which really should never have been heard in the first place. But, okay, so what about Roe versus Wade? Well, it was based on the understanding of science at the time, and of course the justices wanted it to be, they wanted it to go a certain way, and so to argue that abortion was a right and whether it was constitutional, the ruling was that it was constitutional because of the right to privacy, which I respect a right to privacy, of course, but it's a de facto type thing, because the government isn't supposed to do searches and seizures according to the Fourth Amendment without a warrant. But whether or not you kill a person is not a right to privacy. So yeah, this was a twisting of the Constitution because of the desire to rule that abortion is a right. So it's like, figure out a way to justify it by twisting the Constitution. And now we have this idea that the Constitution enshrines a right to abortion, which is a right to kill human beings. And there's no such right in the Constitution, or as anyone who wrote it intended. They did not have abortion in mind, okay? Yeah, but then even though we recognize the Mississippi case that's going to be heard could potentially challenge Roe versus Wade, and other cases where it's like, it's clear, come on, we have the science. Roe versus Wade was determined on false pretenses. The whole idea of the 3 trimesters where, okay, the states can impose some restrictions in the 3rd trimester and fewer restrictions in the 2nd trimester, but no restrictions in the 1st trimester, based on faulty reasoning about science that didn't know as much about life with ultrasound technology at the time. But we've proven with ultrasounds now that you could actually have a heartbeat, definitely by 5 weeks, but, even earlier, between 3 and 4 weeks, but it's life at conception, okay? But back to the Texas abortion law. On October 6th, U.S. District Justice Robert Pittman ordered, an injunction, a pause on the law, and claiming that it was unjustly contrived. It was an unjustly contrived scheme to deny a fundamental constitutional right. Now that sounds like the opinion of an activist judge, and he is. I think, if I remember, he was an Obama appointee, and he just thinks abortion is a constitutional right because, he desires that be true, and so that's how he's going to argue it. And there is I think his ruling there was like 113 pages, if I remember correctly, just basically oozing with mockery of the Texas bill, the Texas law, about how it's unconstitutional. And then some abortion clinics, okay, it's stayed, let's scramble, let's start getting abortions done until, when it's reversed, then we'll stop. And 2 days later, on October 8th, the U.S. Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals reversed the stay until the Supreme Court can hear the case about the law. And as the Court of Appeals, the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals in, Texas, stayed the abortion stay so that the law remains in effect until, further notice. The abortion clinics then stopped, so they got some more abortions done and then had to stop it. But, if the law is enforced, people can still bring suits against someone who performed an abortion, so it's not like they're shielded from protection during the stay, which of course, that's up to the courts, to decide whether, unjustly or unjustly. Yeah. So, and then they said it had until October 12th for that stay to be ruled on, but it actually happened on October 14th that there's an order that the law there can still remain in effect. I believe it was a panel of 3 judges in the Fifth Circuit again of appeals that 2-1, so panel of 3, 2-1, that the law stays in effect until the Supreme Court has the hearing on the law, which could happen possibly in December sometime. So the Texas law stays in effect until something else happens. And, this makes me think of what I want to call this episode Texas Hold'em Abortion Edition. But, I do want to, because I was reading an article, along with the articles I was reading about the whole debacle with this heartbeat law, the back and forth there, an article that was trying to apply, the gender identity, the transgendered, non-binary, gender fluid, whatever community, that they're somehow uniquely affected by this, abortion law. And so, there was a USA Today article on the 12th that I read that, it was trying to claim that, getting an abortion while trans is always hard, and the Texas law, puts undue burden on trans and, non-cisgendered people, and of course you have to scratch your head wondering, so exactly how does this law uniquely put strain on them? And as reading the article, it didn't convince me that that was the case. It's just the article's just kind of trying to give us the sob story about how trans and non-gendered or non-binary gender fluid people struggle with medical care, but it didn't seem to really tie it to the Texas abortion law very well. And it's almost like it was trying to do two different stories there, but of course tug at your heartstrings to try to make it like it's it's discrimination against minorities. So according to this USA Today article, a trans man, biological woman who claims to be a man, was assaulted, which of course I would empathize with that. No matter what, no one has the right to be, assaulted, and became pregnant as a result. Now this, the article uses masculine pronouns to refer to this trans man who became pregnant as a result of this, and it says that he didn't actually choose an abortion, so the he actually did have the child and became a parent, but stated this, trans man stated that the anti-abortion laws personally affect him, because I don't know how it personally affects him, but it affects people like him. And according to the article, a lot of the focus then, after talking about this particular person, saying it personally affects him without really explaining how, it says that the whole issue of the Texas abortion ban seems to focus so much on cisgendered women, but it does, what's lost in all this is, how it affects non-cisgendered people like trans men or non-binary people, and the challenges they face with a ban on abortion. The article talks about how these non-cisgendered people deal with difficulties and with discriminations, misunderstandings, and difficult conversations in clinics about, their body and stuff. What's like, okay, if you're going to juggle around, identity that doesn't have to do with the way God has made you, then, no matter what you do in legitimate medical care, it has to care for your actual body. So there's nothing that's unique about abortion or not abortion, or an abortion ban, that triggers this any more than some so-called trans man has to deal with medical care that has to do with periods, or bleeding as a result of periods. I don't want to get too graphic on stuff, but like things that have to do with your actual body and how it functions that you want to suppress, or and if something comes up there, what in the world does this have to do with an abortion ban? And of course that's the case that the article wants to make without really explaining how. So it doesn't explain much how the abortion ban uniquely affects these particular people, except with supposed issues about it mentions later photo IDs, such as when trying to get an abortion in a different state. But really, how is, and the idea being that if you show a driver's license that's several years old and the picture on there looks a lot different from the way you look now, well, that's that's the person's choice, and it's not an abortion ban, uniquely that's going to make that an issue. That's, it's kind of like if you eat ice cream every day and then complain that, you've put on weight, that's your choice. So if you change the way you look different from your driver's license, that's your choice. Like a guy who, gets a driver's license when he's baby-faced and then lets his beard or mustache grow, that's going to be an issue. Or likewise, if he gets a picture when he has a mustache or beard and then shaves it off at any given time, that could be an issue too. So just totally changing the way you look because you're trying to identify a certain way, and then saying that an abortion law uniquely gives you difficulties because you got to drive out of state, and if you get pulled over or you have to show a driver's license for whatever medical care, and then there's difficulty with identifying you, well, you're the one who chose to be identified differently from your driver's license. It has nothing to do with abortion. So that brings this episode to an abrupt end because I just parked at work, and so yeah, stay tuned for more episodes of Truthspresso and Truthspresso Express.
Thank you for waking up with Truthspresso. Good morning, and God bless your day.
Hey friends, Daniel Minnick here again. If you liked waking up to this episode of Truthspresso, I would really appreciate it if you would rate it on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or whatever application you use to listen to Truthspresso.